if you do not know yourself, you cannot truly be true to yourself. You can be your best self based on who you assume or you are told that you are. You can make the best of it. But you cannot truly be yourself unless there is some reference point that is memorable and resounding enough that gives me the pride and authority and ownership of myself.
You see, I think it's all about discovering who you are by telling stories. Because if you don't, let me give a very small analogy. When an eagle is born and when the little chick is born, they are just about the same, but they are not the same. What if you take the little eagle and you mix it up with the chicken, with the little chick, and they grow all together, and they are told the same story? Do you think the eagle will ever fly like the ancestors do? The answer is the eagle will never fly.
We need to reach our younger generation. We need to heal them. We need to get them to understand who they are. They may live in this country, yes, and thankful for the host country, for whatever it has provided, but we also know the damage that has come through the peoples of this land. So what we are trying to do now is build ourselves up.
Hello and thank you for checking out this video. I'm Obehi Ewanfoh, the host of the African Diaspora Storytelling Series. Every 2 weeks we meet up on LinkedIn to talk about different ways we can leverage the power of storytelling as people of African descent. Now this is it. We are uniting the millions of Africans in the diaspora through the power of our story. It does sound like what you are interested in. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends who might need it. Now, back to today's conversation. I decided last year that because of this different idea that I've gathered around the topic of storytelling, let me share what I've learned with other people. Maybe some other persons will also learn something from me and, of course, pass the knowledge on. So that is why I decided to create this book series. And, of course, the intention was also create a book series. I just wanted to create, to write one book. But it was really voluminous because what I learned was many. It wasn't something that could be explained in just an article or just a book of 2 chapters. Of course, I could do that if I wanted. But because it was really voluminous, I decided to break it down so that it can be easy for people to understand. That is why it became a series. The series, there are 5 books inside, each of them treating a separate argument within the topic of storytelling. So that is actually where we are coming from. Today, like, of course, every other day, because we are here continuously talking about storytelling and how we can leverage it in what we are doing, from business to community to personal life. Storytelling, we will come to understand, is an integral part of our life, whether in the past or in the present. So that is why we are here continuously talking about storytelling. And today we are looking at how we can use storytelling to build identity in the African diaspora community. All right, so I start with Nakosha because you are the newest here with Dr. Mansia and Olatuji, who is coming just now. We have been here before. Because you are new here, we give you the privilege to sort of tell us who you are. Then, of course, we're going to pick up the conversation later on. Please, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Obehi, and thank you, everyone, for joining in on this call. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Nakaja. I'm currently doing a master's program in anthropology and linguistics. I'm looking at sociocultural anthropology specifically. I'm an author, I'm a business owner, and I recently just published a book called Play the Game, Hierarchical Assimilation. And it's really interesting because a lot of the first chapters of that book is about my story, growing up in the system in America, because I am in America, but then I ended up finding myself doing a lot of traveling on the continent of Africa, coming from Ghana and Morocco and Tanzania and Egypt, spending some time there, to also finding myself in Asia as well, in Vietnam, Thailand, and India. So I talk a lot about basically the structures of America and how it basically tries to put African people in a box no matter what. And if you're looking at the history of, for example, the transatlantic slave trade or the Indian slave trade, oftentimes they divided up African people with different identities that wasn't given to them. It wasn't like ascribed to them by their ancestors. And so what happens is you start to have a loss of cultural identity over that time. So what's interesting is that, for example, in Canada, you have these African groups of people that are labeled as Nova Scotia, which is the land of Canada, or people who fought with the British during the Independence War of America. You call them Black loyalists. People who come from the Caribbean are called Maroons. So you have these huge discrepancies and identities. And so I look at that in my book and what happens when we have someone else's identity, but also going towards the space of reclaiming our own identities and what that would look like. So that's a lot of the work that I do. And I'm really happy to be talking with you all. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Nakansha. That is a lot there that we are going to be unpacking. Of course, you are not here just by accident. You are here because there is a call. There is a lot of connection here that is really interesting. Of course, looking also at the people that are in the audience, I can have a sense of importance of what we are talking about today. It is very, very important for us as people of African descent in the diaspora. This is an important story. This is an important conversation that we must have. All right, Dr. Marcia, please tell the people who you are, and then, of course, I'm going to be asking the question, throw it in one at a time.
Good everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, or good night. It depends on where you are. I am happy to be here today. As you have already heard, I am Dr. Marshall Thomas, and I am a Christian leader. I am a certified Christian leadership life coach. I am an author, and I am involved in the African diaspora and also in storytelling because my specialization was in a disadvantaged rural school. And so for that reason, I began to listen to their stories, albeit I have generational roots in Africa. My great grandparents were taken here, and that story was told to us by their children who would have been my grandparents and great grandparents also, in the way that they knew it. And I became very intrigued in telling person stories from their point of view and how they have experienced it. And so I wrote 3 textbooks in which I detailed the stories of those children and their parents in those books. So they had those books to use and to compare themselves and to evaluate their story on the pages, and then to critically analyze and do some problem solving because it is on a page. And those 3 books, Adventures in Language Arts, book 1, 2, and 3, have been exposed to other countries and also in the Caribbean for use in the classroom. And so real stories are used for language arts and for learning and for educating and for empowering and giving voice to marginalized individuals, especially children.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, we can see that there's a lot of value being shared here, and I really appreciate it. It is my honor to be here coordinating this event. It is really an honor. And sometimes we all have our different calling, in that irrespective of where we might find ourselves, what we might do, we are all in our different mission. Mine is just doing this, and yours is doing what you are doing. So we must appreciate the opportunity to be able to serve. This is something that we shouldn't take for granted at all. So I want to thank all of you again for being here. Okay, now I will put my first question to Nakasha. And the question is this. I want to start with the relevance. What is the relevance of storytelling to the African diaspora identity? What is your take on that? Of course, listen, Aliyah, I've not forgotten you. Thank you for joining us, but I'm coming to you just now. I want Nakasha to respond first.
Yeah, the relevance of African storytelling is very imperative in the age that we're in now, particularly because you find that there is a lot of people who are non-African who are telling the stories for Africans themselves, and so they begin to distort histories, which is what we see a lot, and and a lot of the education systems. I want to say just in America, but honestly, that's not the case. You also have the colonial influence in education that also impacts African education systems as well. And a lot of times we still don't see Afrocentric schools or curriculums that's introducing this approach of storytelling and writing the narratives as to what happened from an African lens. A lot of it can be said because of colonialism and then also the residual impacts of I want to say mental enslavement or the psychology that starts to be distorted because of that generational epigenetic trauma. So it's really important to understand these histories as far as like where it's coming from generations, and to reform them, recreate them in a way that can help us move forward. And so that's the saying of you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you're from is really true. So it's really important to do African storytelling and to keeping our information within generations or within our communities essentially. Otherwise there becomes a whitewashing, or there becomes a huge distortion, and then we forget who we are. And then we get to see that very, very well in the case of Africans who are Americans. So African Americans in America, you get to see that when they're not introduced to their own information as to who they are, they're connected culturally from where they come from, they begin to assimilate into a system that tells them that they're nothing, or that they're X, Y, and Z drug dealers, rappers, whatever the case may be, that they're these negative things. And then they also create an economic system that makes them live in scarcity. So it also exasperates those things. So it's important for us to change that dynamic. And the only way to do it is to get into our own storytelling. And the issue of it is the field of anthropology, right? So the field of anthropology is rooted in racism. It was the way that foreigners, particularly Europeans, were able to go into these indigenous communities around the world and be able to understand the communities to their language, speak into their language, but also their culture, capture it, and then reframe it, or take things from their cultures and then recreate it in another way, right? So that's a whole nother conversation. But that's what the field of anthropology is like rooted in. And so when you start to understand that, you understand that they created an entire field of science of distorting history to their own advantage, of having like this very Eurocentric view, or this othering that entails engaging in cultural genocide. So when you get that concept, then you start to realize how important storytelling is. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Of course, I'm going to be asking also other their take on it, but I think this is really deep and really very interesting. Of course, that justifies why we are here. It is important that we continue to tell our story, because if we don't, we run a very huge risk of prolonging the incarceration that we are today, because we are currently incarceration in many parts of the African reality. And until we are able to tell our story, because story now is going to help us to shape a future. Even if we have to die, it's going to help us to define what happened after that. So story is an integral part of our existence, and it's going to play an important role. I think, Aliyah, you wanted to say something. Please go ahead and share with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me up on the stage. I just wanted to do like a brief introduction of myself and introduce myself to the group. I appreciate this initiative that you guys have put together. I definitely know that storytelling is very important in the building the identity of the African diaspora for more than one reason. Most times, there's a major disconnect between the diaspora and the continental Africans and what we've learned over the years, right, through America's educational system. But for myself, just as a brief introduction, I'm a wealth management and investment consultant. I'm an author, and I have lived in Senegal, West Africa. Well, I actually relocated to Senegal, West Africa in 2014 with my family. And we founded the Made in Africa Project, which was one of the first initiatives that actually targeted the African diaspora and helping them relocate and invest back to the continent. Um, so that has been some of our work for over the past decade. Like I said, I'm in consulting, so assisting those who are interested in making that move and reconnecting, whether it be for cultural or business purposes. But for the first step, definitely reconnecting back to the continent. For the cultural aspect of it, and actually to reconnect with our brothers and sisters on the land, so that they can learn about their side of the story. We only hear one side of a story. For those of us who are in America, we get a piece of it, right? But it's important for us to understand what happened on the other side of the water too. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. That is an important conversation. Of course, I just sent you a DM that we really need to enlarge that conversation, because I've got some friends that are coming out from the United States, going to Africa, and encouraging also others to do that. Yesterday, I interviewed an American again, but this time he is in the Philippines. He's a guy that is doing something really interesting. And of course, he's also in the field of business. And he was telling me why many Americans need to travel to Africa. Then I told him that I think, in my humble opinion, that a lot of African diaspora need to, as a matter of urgency, make a connection to their root in Africa. You don't need to learn about Africa through the lenses of another person. It's not going to work. Now, what you can do, I was saying, if you have the resources, you can go to any country in Africa and even buy a piece of land. It is your own. And what you will understand is that you might look at it like, well, you are just buying a piece of land. No, you are establishing a connection. That land becomes yours. Nobody can ever take it away from you. But it's even more than that. That is a spiritual connection also. You see, I recently finished writing a book about my eldest brother, a kind of a biography about him. Then at a point, I was speaking about my village, where I came from in the south of Nigeria. Then I was saying, my land, which is my village, is called Idumugulu in Amedokia Urobi. So I was saying that the connection between me and my land cannot be broken, because when I was born as a child, my umbilical cord was cut off and it was buried on that land. Now I want you to imagine that as a seal. A seal is a kind of when in the olden days, when you write a letter, you will seal it, then give it to somebody to deliver the letter. Now you will say signature, no? Or you can say a kind of a bond, a chain that put us together. So you cannot separate me and my land, because that is where my umbilical cord is buried. So for many people of African descent, we must understand that Africa is us. We belong to Africa, Africa belongs to us. We cannot be cut off from that. We cannot give another person the privilege to tell us about who we are. It is our job and our responsibility to find out and be the one speaking about us. Anyway, I don't want to prolong that, because I don't want to be too emotional on that. I have Gloria with us. Gloria, you also do something very interesting in line with what we are sharing today. I believe you have something to say. Please go ahead and share with us.
Thank you, Obehi, and greetings, everybody. Alafia to you all. It's lovely to be here. Fantastic what I've heard so far. My name is Gloria Tinu Ogumbadejo. I'm an ancestral healing coach, and that's more about unlocking generational healing and healing the past, healing family patterns, connecting with ancestors, and learning techniques of healing. Storytelling for me has been quite an incredible experience. Just through the work that I've been doing, I've understood that storytelling I've learned so much about who I am as a person, my identity. Storytelling bridges the gap between the living and the ancestors, establishing a sense of continuity and connection. And by sharing stories about our ancestral lineages, we deepen our understanding of our roots, heritage, and the struggles and triumphs of our ancestors. I mean, when I listen to the stories since I've started this work about my people, I'm from the Yoruba tribe, and who they were as a people, and knowing that their DNA runs through me. When I walk, I walk with purpose. I know who I am. No one can tell me anything different. I'm a child of God, yes, but I also know that I'm a child of warriors, intellectuals, artists. Just the thought of who my people were. It it makes me step in a different way, and it makes me love who I am. And this is something I pass on to my daughters, who I hear them now talking. They're young adults, and I hear them saying, "I'm from the Yoruba tribe. I'm this. I'm that." And I'm thinking, well, if I close my eyes tomorrow, I've done my work. Because it's a very powerful thing. Listening to the stories of our ancestors, it cultivates empathy and connection. One of the things that I've understood also, coming from the Yoruba tradition, is something we call ori. I don't know if anybody here who is from the Yoruba tribes, and it's that thing that we bring to the world, a self-consciousness of who we are as human beings. It's something. It refers to the inner consciousness and personal identity, and through storytelling, you learn how your ori, you come with wisdom and guidance of your ancestors, allowing for personal transformation and healing. In the Yoruba tradition, the science of healing encompasses a holistic approach, and it recognizes interconnectedness of various dimensions of human existence, including physical, emotional, spiritual, and well-being. And when you listen to stories, you listen to our elders, you listen to aunties, uncles, all those stories are out there. You just need to ask someone from the older generation. And when we tell our own stories, our own experiences, I know, having been on earth for a few decades now, I have my own stories, and it adds to the mix. So this is just my little bit of input. I don't want to take up all the time. I have a lot more to say, and if the opportunity comes, I'll speak a bit more. Thank you for listening.
You see, this is a conversation that we're not doing by accident. I want to repeat that again. We're intentional here. And of course, we're going to come back here a number of times because we need to champion this conversation. We need to talk about it for a variety of benefit. You see, you're talking of Ori. I have different conversation with a particular scholar on African spirituality. And of course, we are still coming back to it again because at a point, we need to talk about some of this deep thing. What do we even mean by God? What do we mean by spirituality? How was it interpreted in the time of our ancestors? You see, among the Igbo people, there is what they call Chi. And Chi is explained as the God inside you, the God within. Now, if you see, I think even within Christianity or among other religion, you have the concept of the God within. I don't want to go deep on that, but what I really want to say is that we need to understand that when we are looking for salvation as a people, as African, anything that take our direction away from us is a deception. The God or our salvation must turn our face, our focus into us. It's not in front of you, it's inside you. Because when you were born, you were a full package. You were not unclean, you were clean, you were pure. You have everything. You were not slave. You didn't need to be accepted. You were already accepted. You have every instrument that you needed to navigate this experience called life. For the fact that you are told that You need to be born again. Well, that is a different conversation. I don't want to go there today, but I just want to thank you so much, Gura, for that thing that you mentioned, the Ori. Because when we talk about spirituality, when we talk about our identity, when we talk about our history, we should know what it means. That is so important. Thank you for sharing that. All right, and I want to go back to Dr. Matsia because I threw a question to Anakasha before, and she did, of course, a very beautiful explanation to that. But I want your take on it, Dr. Matsia. Looking at the African diaspora, what is the relevance of storytelling to our identity? I want you to share something with us.
I want to start by telling a story. My son is 29. I have two children. And when he was 3, he had a fascination with kites. And so in Jamaica, we have a thing that we call kite festivals where persons go with ex- extraordinary kites and different designs and creativity, and they go to a place that is a very expansive 10 acres, and they fly their kites, and the judges go around, numerous numbers of them go around, and they go through and they select up to 10 kites, and you are rewarded and recognized for your brilliance and your creativity, your innovation, and so on. And so I took my child, my husband and I took my child to that kite festival, and for some reason I we misplaced him. And that feeling of loss, terrible loss, and desperation that my husband and I felt was so huge that we would not leave that place until we found him. And when we did find him, we were a little angry because what he had actually done was followed someone whose kite he was very fascinated with. But when we found him, there was a mixed feeling of anger, of relief, of gratitude. But we expressed it in such a way that he understood where we were standing and knew that he must never in any way lose sight of us wherever we go, or stray or walk away from us, because the effect on us was too great. He understood that clearly. Of course, he got the right hand of fellowship because we were angry enough to make it memorable in that way. What am I saying? The story of someone's Ruth and someone's beginning must be understood, or that person will be forever lost. If you do not know yourself, you cannot truly be true to yourself. You can be your best self based on who you assume or you are told that you are. You can make the best of it. But you cannot truly be yourself unless there is some reference point that is memorable and resounding enough that gives me the pride and authority and ownership of myself that Gloria spoke of. And so the African story is a story that is so unique and deliberately different that it must never be lost. And I'm very passionate about it because I wish I knew my ancestors, because there are predispositions, habits, and mindset that carry from generation to generation by nature and by nurture. We must embrace the good and bad of our stories so we can be whole, very, very whole in ourselves. And so the African diaspora must, and I'm speaking as an insider and as an outsider because I'm on the periphery, because I've never lived in Africa. But I understand that one's history is so important because you cannot go forward if you have not gone backwards. Because forward means that you step from where you are standing and move to the front. And so to move to the front from generation to generation, Our traditions must be passed down, our history. And more than all, I want to say to every African listening here, your wisdom. You were designed specially. We are a different breed, and I do not care who this might be hurting at this time. We were born and created differently because we as Africans have a story that is more powerful than life itself. And that is why there are so many persons in our history that have a story of resilience, of overcoming. The theme of African stories. Look, go back, those of us who go through these stories. The theme of African stories is conquering, it is overcoming. Gloria says they are warriors, it is innovation, it is creativity. Look at the themes. It is not despondency, it is not helplessness, it is not a giving in. There are stories of strength and character that are very unprecedented. And I say, I will not apologize for that. And those of us who are carriers of this story must understand that it is a very honorable privilege, as much as it is a right for us to tell our true stories, because this wisdom is what will preserve Africans wherever they are. It is this wisdom that will process, and will make a growth mindset of triumph, make you maneuver and navigate through your challenges and your circumstances, and through you're being ignored and you're being undervalued. It is this story of resilience and courage and determination that must move from generation to generation. So when all is said and done, we are able to stand wherever we are, original, unique, and authentic.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Uh, I want to go back to what Gloria was saying before. That, of course, in line with what you've just said, Dr. Matsia, that when you know your story, when you know where you are coming from, when you know who are behind you, when you know the blood that is running in your vein, the channel through which they got there, or actually through which you got there, because you will be nothing without your ancestors, then you walk in a different kind of light. You walk in a different kind of awareness. You see, I think it's all about discovering who you are by telling stories. Because if you don't, let me give a very small analogy. When an eagle is born, and when the little chick is born, they are just about the same, but they are not the same. What if you take the little eagle and you mix it up with the chicken, with the little chicks, and they grow up together, and they are told the same story? Do you think the eagle will ever fly like the ancestors do? The answer is the eagle will never fly, because the eagle do not know that the ancestors used to fly, or actually that the ancestors flies. The eagle will think that because it look like every other bird, it's supposed to eat dust. That is what story does for us. If we understand who we are, then we will be able to do extraordinary things like our ancestors did. Story help us to do that.
Hello, my name is Elijah M.E. Camara from Sierra Leone, West Africa. Um, I want to say I'm happy to join this conversation because I'm a writer, which I see it as an opportunity because it comes in my mind one day. I was sitting, I have parents that are from the upline axis, which I believe there is so many story I sit down and one day I write a book that is called Honey Law. And this particular book was about a story about my grandfather. It's not, they have never heard about this. It is a very powerful story. Yes, so I sat down and said, before this wonderful idea will be wasted, let me put it in book. Let me write it, so that even generation to generation read about this man. Yes, so I'm very happy. I'm interested in this because that has built my capacity to think and create things. Because some people were even amazed. Oh, you writing a story? How do you put it together? Because it's very simple. It's just a story about my grandfather. It's just like I have to know, because I'm a writer, and so I know how to put things in place for it to become a full story. So that is a very wonderful one, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for that. Please keep writing. It is important. We need it. We need it for a lot of things. All right. Now, I have a question for Olatuji, and of course, also for other people in the room, if you need to contribute to that. And the question is, we understand the importance of story. We understand that it's at the very threshold between our life and death, because it helps us to build ourselves, but it can also be used to destroy us. So the question is, how do we leverage storytelling to build our identity, either as Africans or as African diaspora? That is to you, Mr. Olatuji.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much. I came in very, disjointed, but I'm already in the mood because you can't talk about Africa and not touch me. It's not possible. It's really very, very important that we understand that there are a lot of complex things in the world, and one of the finest way to simplify what we go about in the world is story. Story has remained one of the most beautiful gifts, that God has given human. Uh, you would be bored when I start giving you facts and figures of how you got here this morning or this afternoon or this evening. All right. When I tell you, oh, do you know we have social number of people on LinkedIn? Do you know we have social number of rooms that are happening now? And I begin to tell you all of those things just to bring your attention to the fact that we are in a room where we are using story to build identity in the African diaspora. We are easily bored as human beings, and one thing that keeps us alive and active is story. Leveraging story is more than necessary for us to build our identity. How many of us have seen Thor, Love and then Thunder? We have seen it before. You can just show. I want to see if you have seen Thor, Love and Thunder. Just give a reaction. I want to see the number of us that have seen it. Oh, I can't remember the lead actor now, but it's a very interesting movie. Okay, I see a reaction now. Okay, I feel not alone. That's interesting. So, Love and Thunder. Let me see if I can get the name quickly of the lead actor. Please, just a moment. All right. What's the name now? Okay, Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth. That's the guy that did it. All right, that's he was actually the lead role in that movie. And if you are from the Yoruba origin, like Gloria, you must have read about Shango or heard about Shango. In the Yoruba, genealogy, we have Shango as one of those great guys in those days. All right. He was referred to, or still referred to, as a god of thunder. And everything about Thor, you see, the first I saw Thor. I think I just saw it once. They have another version now. I was forced to to the cinema to see it by a friend, and they have another version, right? I think there's an upgrade to the first move. In the first movie, they had Thor using hammer as his weapon. But that was a clear misconception of the picture they are trying to paint. Now, why did this happen? Because they were trying to tell a story that was not their own. When you allow the story to be told by who is not the owner, there would be mistake. So when they came back, trying to do whatever it is they wanted to do, the movie came out, and this time around, Thor now has axe as his weapon, which is the original weapon of the god of thunder, axe in his hand. Now, how did that happen? They must have been, cautioned by some people in quote who are historians of other people's story. Hey, come on, what we read about Africa, there is a guy, god of thunder. This is his weapon. This is not his weapon. He never used armor, he used axe. But you see, this is a picture I want us to have in our mind about how wrongly our stories have been told because we have left them to be told by people who never came from our origin. Dr. Marcia was talking, about how we can just be lost when we are disengaged or not, connected to our origin. And I like using words. That's my superpower. When I see words, I like to use them very well. Look at the word origin, and I clearly would tell you how you cannot be original when you are not connected to your origin. For the height of any tree is stabilized by the depth of its roots. How closely knitted are you to your origin? When we do not have that, relationship that is required of us to our origin, we are going to carry ourselves wrongly. And when we do, we are unable to create stories that are real. Remember, only real things would survive the test of time. Everything fake, unreal, and wrong will fizzle out with time. But only the real will survive the test of time. So, to leverage storytelling for our brand identity requires that we go to find out the trueness of our origin, the quality truths about our origin, and never allow it to be told to us by a third party, by a spectator, by people who don't have the witness of blood in their vessel to attest to whatever they are saying. I told you how, even though I didn't say it, but I came in very disorganized. But I can't hear about Africa and not be organized. That's my bloodline. It's not possible. It's not possible that I will be here, hearing about Africa and not put myself together. So we need to be able, and special announcement, whether you don't know that we are the finest storytellers on planet Earth. If you want to hear the most beautiful story anywhere in the world, come to Africa. So it's a natural ability for us to tell stories. But it becomes very important that for us to tell stories that will last the test of time, we must take out time to find out the genuine and true story about us, not through another person's eye, but by our own self. These things are available. These things are accessible. Now, don't ask Thor where they got the story of Shango from, and they turned it to a movie, a blockbuster movie. Everybody's going to watch it and they don't know it's a story from somewhere in Africa, the Yoruba genealogy, the Yoruba root, and they are, seated and they are enjoying it. What happened? Somehow tomorrow, somebody will come up from there and begin to argue Thor against the Shango. Why? Because somebody took it out of just mere, a story, of just mere, idea somewhere, and turned it to a product. And that's why we are here today. We want to be able to productize everything you have known about Africa through this storytelling. We want you to see pictures in your mind. We want you to be able to capture these things as something real and transmittable that would be able to go from generation to generation. But remember, we are only able to do this and allow it to outlive us when they are genuine. Don't allow anything take away that genuineness. It doesn't need to be interesting. That's the thing. It doesn't need to be, to play to the gallery. It doesn't need, you don't need to make it juicy or sugary. You just need to make it true, relevant, and then it can outlive us. And it will be able to communicate, appropriately the message of our roots and communicate the power that is embedded in it. I can tell you for free that we are special breeds. There is no argument to that. You see, you have melanin. That is why you have the color of your skin. Some people are begging to have it. They have different pigmentation when situation arise or request for it. So there is need for you to be happy. There's need for you to be, very, very proud of your roots. And how will this come? Some of us would need the paracetamol. Some of us know what paracetamol is. Yes, I just quickly want to, close with that. Paracetamol for children has to be sweetened, turned to syrup for them to use. Generally, drugs that children will take, babies will take, has to be sweetened for them to be encouraged to take it. Because if they don't take these drugs, their sicknesses will not be cured and they may die. So we need to do everything possible to present the African story to different sets of the people, the population, the age, and whatever it is across the universe. To some people, we need to serve it with syrup or a syrup with some level of sweetener. And you see, for adults, the same paracetamol is bitter for adults. And you know what that means? You have the choice to make whether to stay alive or to die without any encouragement. So you have grown up enough to know that to stay alive is better than to die. So they don't need to sweeten your paracetamol. So we need to engage different methods like the one we are doing here today. It's one of those ones that will inspire and energize a lot of possibilities in helping us to preserve our culture, our story. Remember, Thor is everywhere in the movie today. Why? Because the story has been productized. It has been turned to a product. We need to turn a lot of our stories to products. Yes, to products. Let them be out there. Let people pursue to get them. That increases the value of them. Let them not be kicked away from the public glare as something that is not worth it. No. Let us turn them to those things that people need to pursue after and want to have a copy and want to become a part of it. And that way, we begin to, make our story a sought after resource, and when a thing become a resource means that, our demand is increased and we can begin to control the supply. People are dying to know about Africa because truly, of a truth, we are special people.
All right. So thank you so much, Olatuji. I don't know, maybe the connection there got lost, but anyway, we got the message. Thank you so much for that sharing. And I think I still want to remain there a little bit on how we can leverage storytelling to build our identity, because I think that is important. But I think also what Olatuji was saying is really critical here, that we need to commercialize our knowledge, our ability to tell our story. We should not take it lightly as if it is irrelevant. It is absolutely relevant. It is important that we need to take what we learn about our story and transform it into a product that people can consume. I think Elijah was saying something also similar to that, because he have written a book about his grandfather, and that is not to be taken lightly. But because you have done that, the story of your father is now easily preservable in the way that ordinary people can conserve it, can read it and consume it. So in that, I don't know if Dr. Marcia will have anything to say there related to how we can leverage storytelling to better build our identity as African diaspora. Please help me with that.
I do. I just quickly I'm just so inspired today. I wanted to say a big thank you to Dr. Marcia.
So
Her
sorry
words,
about that.
her words are still reverberating through my body. I was just shivering from the powerful words she said. One of the things I really wanted to say, I have a lot of things I want to say, but something I just have to share and this is about telling your stories wherever the opportunity presents itself. I've been unwell for a few weeks now, and today I woke up and something said to look on your post, your platform, Obehi brother, and I saw this and I thought, okay, let me come on here. And wow, just like you said, it's not by chance that we're gathered here. And what I've received already today, it's like the medicine Brother Linga was talking about. The medicine is already in my body. We have our medicine. Part of my work is I talk about the medicine we have. We practice medicine just by how we talk, how we are, what we've been given, our divinity. It's our medicine. We carry medicine through the world. We don't realize it. We have been given something innately by the divine, by Olodumare, by God. And we absolutely must fight everything that has been put to divide us. All those things that have been put to divide us have not worked, because here we are coming together even stronger than ever. But where we really need to make the difference is in telling these stories. I mean, one of the things I know for storytelling, it validates our experiences and helps us shape our sense of identity. It helps us to embrace and honor our heritage, understand the resilience, wisdom in our lineage, and reclaim aspects of our identity that may have been overlooked or disregarded, and more importantly, distorted. We are going through a time at this moment where that distortion, just as we are agents of good, agents of trying to promote healing, there are agents who are working overtime to do the opposite. So by talking, by spreading our stories, by telling who we are, learning about ourselves, because we have to do our own research. Within that, this is put it in our brands, all the things that we do. How I came to become an ancestral healer in itself is still a mystery to me. I'm an ordained minister, I'm a reverend. And being a reverend and being an ancestral healer by cultural accounts don't go together. But these are all the nonsensical things that have been sold to us, that we've bought. I mean, once again, the more I learn about the Yoruba tradition, we use the word ashe. When we pray, at the end of it, we say ashe. Do we know what that word means? It represents the life force of energy, the creative power that permeates all things. When you say ashe, it means it will happen. It has been done. May it be so. It means so many different things. You can't, like my brother said, we have the source of which we come from. If we only understand it, oh my goodness, we are elevated already by our existence. And I should stop now. I'm sure to let other people talk. But
Oh, thank you so
I
much,
just
there.
wanted to share that. Thank you all. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. All right, now the time is so, Dr. Batia. Yeah, you will have a problem with the connection. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Gloria. I love the passion and the depths from which you speak, because I share a similar passion. And to answer your question, Obehi, I believe that we have, especially those who are leaders and those who have outlived the trauma, the tragedy, the unkindness in Africa, who are standing on top of those things, have a divine responsibility to package these stories, these genuine, real, original, unique stories, as a duty, a divine duty. So it is not lost, it is preserved for generations. How do we do that? Every generation comes from a generation. And the Bible says that the sins of parents visit generations, even to the fifth. Also, the successes, the good deeds of these generations follow you also. So there are things that are embedded in each generation, because there are numerous generations in the African diaspora. But we must have gatekeepers to package these stories so they can be preserved, and the strength and vitality of traditions and cultures and beliefs that are good and bad can be passed on, so they can be evaluated, and we can strengthen the good things that remain, and we can examine those things that do not work and make changes that will advance the next generation and make them more powerful as they embrace what is their generational traits and predisposed gifts of strength, and give something greater and greater and greater, and increase in strength as they pass it on to their generations. And I look at this program and the power of the media, and I find that we are taking this very lightly. And that is why I am a part of this, Obi, because I believe that whether African or not, this is how you preserve your stories. The media has been very powerful, and the media puts things in people's faces. It's as if it forces it upon you. You cannot avoid it. And so we must now make an intentional effort to have workshops like this, original tradition and oral tradition workshops and events. We must organize them, and we must make these workshops so effective that you encourage your elders and your experienced storytellers to share their narratives in a real, fun, and informative and persuasive way, because stories are memorable. You never forget a good story. You never forget an impactful story. You tell it for many years. Mark you, it might be watered down based on your interpretation and how you want to present it, but you never forget. And so these stories passed on by those who, because many of our elders are not inclined to take up these new ways, but they are very willing to have them being filmed as they talk about it. And as they share it in their natural way, in their comfortable space and settings. And so persons on this line who have not ever looked at it, there you say you're writing something about your brother, and Elijah said he did similar. Now you need to speak to your elders, and you need to use the power that you have and your programs to digitally capture these stories that so they can be told. And so these oral workshops, you must intentionally plan them, and you must use your digital experience and resources to capture them in their real sense, and they must go on YouTube and so on. You can also have what I think makes it more collaborative is that we are born with an innate ability to welcome competition. So we must have storytelling competitions that are very wholesome and that are very rich and encourage people to hone their craft and share their narratives. And we must offer these commendations, recognition and rewards of their desire to be a part of it and to motivate the participation. I joined a Grateful Stars competition challenge. I would call it a challenge, but it's really embedding us a way to challenge ourselves to see what we are grateful for a long period of time. And for some reasons, the persons who are the planners, and some of them are here, gave out gifts at the end of it that were very unexpected, but has changed the lives of especially the face of gratitude. And while we have not kept up with him, he has expressed the impact, how impactful it is. He has many stories of survival that he can tell us. He's in a wheelchair that we need to capture, and we need to have records of this for his children and for himself. And I'm just giving that as an example. What about story clubs and circles in Africa and in the diaspora where we are, in Canada, as our first guest mentioned, in Italy, Obehi, in Los Angeles, in Las Vegas, in wherever we have gone? What about encouraging and maintaining storytelling clubs and circles so persons can establish their roots and get support naturally from people? I find that many times when we expose ourselves, there is a saying, and I think it's an African saying, but because we are Africans in the Caribbean, and that is undeniable, there is a saying that says the higher the monkey climbs, the more he exposed. And so these circles will expose our generation and establish the root of our greatness, that it is carried with dignity and confidence. When children learn and are accepted and validated from very early, they are unbeatable. No force shakes them down. It is when we poorly establish ourselves in front of our generations and our children, is when our generations cannot find us faithful, that we destroy them. It is not wealth or lack of it, it's not poverty. It is unfaithfulness of the bearers of the future of our generations. And we want to be able to record these things and archive them the way you're doing, Obi, and I want to commend you on that. What about storytelling festivals? What about mentorship programs? What about those things where we teach our young generation to respect and appreciate their roots in such a way? A lot of these persons are ashamed. Why are they ashamed? Because we have passed on. We have passed on the subtle and unwise ways of shame, because we fight and we tell them we want them to be better than us. We want them to leave and never return. We tell them those things when we really should say return and change and build up and reframe and give hope by your success and by your wisdom and the exposure you have now gotten that can connect what is different with what is familiar and produce an original product again of resilience and of determination and of being and of existing, because you are, and you are valuable, you matter, and it is your right to be who you are in the ways that you are, and help them to be able to connect in a very respectful way with those who are not like us and who do not understand us. So understanding is built and generated in such a powerful way that we become collaborators and not competitors.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Matia. You see, this thing, they really make me emotional, no? They really make me emotional. In that, we would think that maybe in Africa, some of the richest resources that we have are petroleum, are gold, and diamond, but it is not true. Those are not our richest resources. Our richest resources are our story, because story rules the world. The fact that JFK told Americans that we are putting a man in the moon, they are building story. If we are able to tell our story, if we can understand where our ancestors are coming from, very soon we will transform the Sahara Desert into whatever we want it to be, because we know where we are standing. We know who our ancestors are. It because we are going hungry, because we don't know where we are coming from. We believe the falsity, the falsehood that we haven't done anything before. You see, the good thing about telling children the truth or telling them the real story is so that they can forge a different destiny if they want to, but knowing where their father, their mothers are coming from. If they don't do, if you don't tell them, they will still live, but they are going to live a more harder life, because they are going to try to figure out who you are, and then try to figure out who they are, and then try to make the connection. That is a very difficult job. So we're going to make it easy for them by just saying, this is my role. This is the role that I play in this journey. I look at it as a chain. It's a chain of action and reaction. Each person is just a little knot that hold one end to the other end together. If you cut out my part, it is no longer complete. So each of us have a role to play in this journey of making sure that our people can be back on their feet again. Now, I want you to take a moment to think that the reality that we have been fabricated falsely for us. And this makes us to believe that even the land that we are standing on, we are alien on it, that it is not our own. So why should I do anything to protect it? Now, think for instance, I usually say to people, we talk of the Benin War as one of the wonders of the world. And the same people that will make this claim will say that Africans have no history. And you try to reconcile that. Why would the Benin need to build a wall if there was nothing to defend in the city? That is one. But that also provoke another question. Why would the Benin need to build a wall if there was no equally strong army coming from the outside? Pay attention, these armies are not European army, these are African army. Now, let's leave that aside. What about the great Zimbabwe? Can the ordinary people growing up in Zimbabwe understand the story behind those wars? What about Sudan? Because people think that when you talk of the pyramid, you need to talk of Egypt. No, you also need to talk of Sudan. Who built these things? Why did they build it? How did they build it? What is the story behind it? The question is, where are you learning this story from? Now, as a person, that is a kind of a preoccupation that I have, and I've shared it with some of my friends within my group in Nigeria, the Asian people of Nigeria. There are certain things that a lot of knowledge that we are losing because we are not documenting the thing with the current tools of the time. You see, the concept of immortality is something that maybe you think is only been thought of today, but it has not been started today. In my place, when a woman find it difficult to have a child, for example, they will give this woman some medicine to take. If she takes this medicine, she will be able to have a child. But there is another thing that I'm also trying to explore in my culture, that there were some people who maybe in their family, people die all the time because there were some illnesses that people couldn't cure, but at a point, they managed to find a cure for this sickness. And they do a certain ritual. They will hang the piece, the seal again. I'm talking of the seal again. When they seal the rituals, they will hang it somewhere. The rules was that that seal will never touch the ground. And story have it that as long as that seal never touched the ground, the person who it was done for will never die. That is a deep story there. That is a question of how long can we really live? How long do we really live? How long are we really supposed to live? We are provoking the question of immortality here. Of course, I am not an expert in this. I am still researching about this story. I'm still trying to understand it. Because the difference between what we call high science and what we call fetishism in African tradition is not even very big. What separates the two? It's a question of from where are you learning, from where are you getting the information? And who is validating it for you? You see, when we tell this story, we are not necessarily telling the people that you must do it according to the story that you are told. No. Now that you know the story, you can forge a different kind of trajectory. But you must know where you are coming from. Because if you don't, that trajectory that you are forging, you don't know the value, you don't know how to put it together. Because you have all the bolt and nut in front of you. But you don't know how to construct it. Because you don't know where you are coming from. Why that is important is that maybe this ground where you are standing, there is a hole there. If you don't know, you might build a 10-story building instead of building just one-story building. You might finish to build the house, but then it's going to collapse because you don't know the story of what is under your feet. But if you know the story, then you will know what to do with what you have in front of you. So I really want to appreciate all of you for the sharing, for your experiences, for the education. And I think this is what we are supposed to do. To take the flag, run with it, and hang it onto some other persons. It is their job to continue from where you stop. But we must play our role. How do we preserve our identity through storytelling to the future generation? I'm just going to need your take on that. And I want to start with Olatuji.
All right, thank you so much. I would have allowed ladies to go first, but no problem. This is Africa. Yeah, like I said, and I really appreciate the take of Dr. Marcia, in putting names to all of those possible activities that can be carried out in order to preserve our culture through storytelling. I gave a broader view by saying productizing our stories, all right, making our stories become delicacies that are sought after and not everybody knows that a gold is a gold. But nobody goes to the mine to look for a gold. People go to the markets to buy gold when they have been refined and already, used as ornaments and jewelries, and whatever it is. So ordinary people don't go to the mines to look for gold. You find miners and people who are, in very deep business of gold to want to see or want to know about it. And it's a privilege that we are, in that class for a few of us who are seeing this as very important and, instrumental to preserving a future. We need to do the dirty work of going to the mines, all right? And that's very important. Remember, I said the other time that the longevity of anything is deepened in the trueness, the truth of it. There are a lot of stories that are flying here and there. And of course, because they are told by the wrong people, they would only, when the hunter writes the story, the hunter will tell you, the lion you are seeing behind me, I killed it. The hunter will not tell you that the lion actually committed suicide, not wanting to die by the guns of him, or by his own bullets. In those days, many people who we now term as gods now in our culture did not die literally. They were men that were so powerful that they afforded not dying, but transforming themselves to different entities. Some will enter the ground alive. Some will turn to a stone. Different forms, because they felt like, come on, like I'm a lion, I should not die by the bullet of the hunter. So when the hunter wants to tell the story of the lion, the hunter will definitely tell it in such a way that will make him look powerful, that will make him look, the center point of the story. But this is a time we need to go to the mines and get out. Some of the time, I think looking at the process, it's not even the mines first. We need to go to those regions. We need to go to those places that we need to excavate the earth and bring out these golds where they are. Turn them to beautiful products. Some of them will have to be written into books. Our previous session, we talked about how it has been said, and we are allowing it to be true when they say, when you want to hide anything from a black man, put it in the book. No, we need to encourage reading culture so that we can break all of this, limitation. It's no longer true that you hide things from an African by putting it in books. So we need to make it very interesting for people to find this truth from books. Now, we are not going to rule out the peculiarity of our audience in the present time. Some people will still not go to books, no matter how interesting we purvey those things. All right. So we put them in movies. All right, we put them in movies, and like Dr. Marcia mentioned, we make context out of it and allow recognition and reward to come, to energize the process, to sustain the process. So turning all of these things into products will make people to be able to see that, oh, come on, this is it. Oh, easily we're able to relate to this origin. We're able to, make a story out of it and continue. And the baseline is we need the true story for us to be able to abide timelessly and to be able to do great stuff. Not lies, not fables. The true story. And it's in this trueness, it's in this truth that we are strong and indestructible. So we need to do this over and over. Like I said, this opportunity to speak is like an inspiration that you and I need. You need it, I need it. Some of us, we are going to get inspired. And what we are just doing here is to just trouble the waters. There are a lot of means to productize our story. There are a lot of means to make our story become timeless, interesting, attractive, and still true, that some of us will not be able to, bring across our mind. But because you are here, you may not be able to come up here and talk about it, but your mind is creative enough and say, okay, oh, I got it. This is how I'm going to do it. Don't be afraid to bring it out. Don't be afraid to let it out. Our language is not vernacular anywhere in the world. Our culture is not a piece of garment. Our culture is not what we wear alone. Our culture is not the food we eat. It's us. And it is not, another thing. It's the main thing. Wherever we are permitted, wherever we can get to, our culture has got all the right to be there. So our language is not vernacular, like we have been made to believe in our schools and everywhere. Hey, don't speak that vernacular here. No. So we need to be bold about this. All right, we need to be bold about this. There's no need to fear anymore. There's no need to fear anymore. And the strength of the boldness is coming from when we have as many as possible platforms like this. That's very important. Don't be afraid to tell the story. Sometimes there's an adage in my language that because the snakes will not go in company, you can easily kill them. They enter into troubles because they go alone. Uh, that was the narrative that was given to us. That, hey, because they are afraid of us in our unity, they are afraid of us in our coming together, and that's why they have done everything possible to divide us amongst each other. This is the time for us to come together, because just one of us is enough to make something happen. How much more when all of us come together, we make a lot to happen. So, in unity, let's tell this story. Let's convey this story from generation to generation. Make it interesting, make it attractive, make it so tellable to even the younger generation. And we have a lot to do in unity. This is possible. Let's do this. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Concluding, it's more of the same in the sense that just understanding that storytelling, the connection it invokes is a sense of belonging and strengthens the ability to heal. Storytelling has the power to touch our emotions and stir our spirits. And because of this, as we honor our ancestors, we also gain insights into our own lives and create a bridge between the past, present, and future. Having said that, I know in the Yoruba traditions, it is believed we exist in three worlds: the unborn, the living, and ancestors. And we are always connected. It is believed that the spirit of the departed ancestors continues to influence the living. So when you think of that connection, you know you're never alone. You can always draw on the wisdom, the knowledge, the power, all that is within us. And it just takes two or three, as in the Christian religion, two or three gathered together. Let us tell our stories. And those stories live on. They take on a life force. And we must not be ashamed of these stories. We have been made to feel shameful for so long. The traumas of that, the damage of all of that still reverberates. It's going to take a long time for that to go. But what we're doing here, by telling these stories, what we've done today within this hour and a half, we've put something out into the ether. And the how often we do this, like my sister said, and my brothers, that more often we do this type of work, the stronger it gets. The more the younger generation, because we need to reach our younger generation. We need to heal them. We need to get them to understand who they are. They may live in this country, yes, and thankful for the host country for whatever it has provided, but we also know the damage that has come through the peoples of this land. So what we are trying to do now is build ourselves up. And nothing is more powerful, like my brother said, than the African storytelling, the oral traditions of storytelling. This is what we were made to do. So I once again I bow down to all of you. Eshe Pukwo, thank you. Alafia.
Eshe, thank you so much, Gloria. Thank you
Thanks so much. Eshe Pupo. That's
Eshe
great. I like
Pupo.
that.
Thank you so much for that. You see, this is actually about power. It's about reclaiming who we are. And when we do, I want to repeat it again, we walk in a different kind of light. Storytelling opened doors for us. All right. So, yeah, Elijah, thank you so much. You see, what you shared actually inspired the room also to talk more about, because that is actually what we need to do. We need to go to the elders. You see, wherever you are, like, you see, how this series started was because I went to people that have been here for the past 30 years before I came. I just simply told them, tell me your story. I put that story together in video, I put it together in text, and I put it together in various ways that is possible, and I hand it over to them. I could see the joy on their faces. And I intend to do the same, expanding the project when I get to my village. I want to speak to the elder. I want to put their story down. And of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that I am going to be the one to do this. But if I can inspire people to do it, for you to know that it is very simple to do, it's not complicated. It's not complicated at all, because we have the tools of the age. What you just need to do might just be your telephone. Just stand the telephone there to your grandma, to your grandpa, and just ask, Grandpa, tell me how it was for you when you were a young boy, you're a young girl. That might be all. That is another story I would have liked to share with you about my father, but I don't have the time for it today, which is actually the reason why I am also doing this. But that is for another day. But I just want to tell us that doing this is highly, highly valuable, because when your grandpa would have passed on, then you will have children, you will have grandchildren, you will have great grandchildren. They're going to ask you, how was your grandfather? Imagine you could tell them, hey, sit down, I want to show you how your grandfather was. Listen to what he was saying. That is a different kind of story. That is a different kind of story. And we, living in the 21st century, 2023, have the possibility to be able to do that. That we can just take our phone, our little camera, sit it down and interview our father. Let it, it's not, I want to point out something clear here. They don't need to be professor. What they say doesn't need to make all the sense in the world. We just want to hear them talk. Just talk about themselves. And trust me, African old people are libraries. When they start talking, they will blow your mind. Please, let's do this. Let's keep doing this. All right, it's your turn, Elijah. Please share with us your final thought here before we go.
Okay. I'm so happy, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really blessed, and I have been. It's like I'm connected to. Is I call it divine, because it has been my thinking. And to start with, this for me, my thinking was to engage the uprising, that is like those that are coming up, and then which I start the project, but because of unstable in the certain support and so forth, I stopped it. And then how did I start it? I started with my community with I was a volunteer teacher in one of the mission school. So I was teaching the upper primary peoples. So because I am so much involved in writing story, sometimes I write a story every day. Every day I write a story, and before I start to teach, I explain that story to them. So it becomes so interesting. So you see, they begin to listen. They see that it is very creative. So what I did is I noticed it was interesting to them. So I demand them to write, to write a story for me, each one of them in a class. So when they started writing, and it was so much interesting that they were writing true things, some things that has happened in their home, with their father, with their brothers. I was imagining if we can initiate these kinds of idea in our nation, because one of the things I've found in my nation, in my country, I found out that most people are not engaged in reading, neither in writing. So it is a big vision, actually. which I was thinking, how could I start this? Sometimes I sit down and try to initiate something that also it will improve my nation, because I know that it is better to know much, to learn more before when you gain more knowledge, you can be able to do much. You see, when you don't have much, you cannot do you cannot express much. And so I am really, really surprised of hearing of all this contribution and what is happening here on this platform. So um sometimes I even ask the kids. Sometimes I even ask the kids, if you write the one that write the best story, I make sure that I give him some money, contribute for his or her lunch that particular day. So that's what I was doing. So what have happens, I love this platform. I love this platform, and I love the initiation that is going on, and from Dr. Marcia, also Mommy Gloria. So I love these things that are happen. So I want us to suggest that we need to involve. That's it. We need to involve, and especially if a platform like this. And then when we are involved, when the way involved and we see it important, we see it serious, and then we can be able to engage the kids. We can be able to engage a young generation. We can create impact. Sometimes transformation or changes start with one person, one individual. Even for a nation, even for a community, you can start with whatever initiative you have. You can start like my brother Obehi was saying. You see, you can start with interviewing maybe people around you. Yeah, that is necessary. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that. You have started already. Just keep on doing what you are doing. I think we should do what we are supposed to do with the resources that you have, with the time that you have, with everything that you have right now. Maybe that is all what you have to do. The universe is watching, and they're going to open a door for you, because we are all energy, and we are supposed to be connecting. But you see, when you light your lamp, it's reflecting. Other light like you will be magnetic to you, because you are not alone. In this world, we are not alone. We have many other people like us who want to connect with us. But if you don't talk, if you don't share, if you don't light your lamp, you remain in the dark, so nobody can see that you are there. So let us light our lamp and let it shine. Dr. Marcia, what is your final thought here?
My final thought is that, just like what Gloria said, Anola Tunje, about this thing of storytelling, fostering a sense of belonging and inclusiveness, I want to also say that it cements our cultural identity, who we really are, when we are not EQ experts, when we are not ancestral healing coach, when we are not certified Christian leadership coach, when we are not writers or authors, when we are not social impact strategists. Who are we? Who are we really? So the storytelling brings us back to who we are in our core, and promotes our cultural identity, that we show up authentic, show up vulnerable, show up valuable, show up as servants, because servants mean that we carry with us the significance of the legacy that we bring by just being who we are, and just by knowing who we are. Because when we know who we are, we come to the table understanding the value we bring to the table. We are particular about how we show up, and when we show up, and why we show up, and we make our showing up take meaning, have meaning for us, and for those who we represent. So we must understand ourselves, we must know ourselves, and we must love ourselves, and we must always represent our best self. Our best self can be a self that is hurting at this time, that has suffered loss, or grief, that has failure, that has things that we are struggling, our challenges or circumstances, because that is the sum total of life. These tests and these occurrences in our life just should make us emerge stronger and amplify the voice of who we are, because we are able to connect all the parts of ourselves that make us up and appreciate it and tell and show it as an overcomer, as a conqueror that knows that we are in a fight that we must win.
Thank you so much for that. This is a fight we must win, and we really must win. I don't know if Nakasha is there. Nakasha, if you are there, what is your final thought here?
Hi. Yeah, I came back. I wasn't able to hear all the great stories. Yeah, but my final thoughts is I encourage everyone who's listening, if you've been wanting to write the stories of your ancestors or just writing your story, I really do encourage you guys to write them and to share them. Not only write them, but share them, because a lot of times we think that, people aren't interested in our stories, but really you never realize how much your story will have an impact, whether it's now or it's in the future. It definitely will have an impact. So I encourage everyone on their call to share their story, write their story, whether it's your ancestors, whether it's you, whether it's people around you, share them. People want to listen. I want to listen. So let's go. Thank you guys for sharing.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And I really want to thank all the people that are in the audience who have stayed to the end of this call. This is really important. This is an important call for us to start where we are, to tell our story, because our story is important. Our story is more important than we think they are. They are absolutely fundamental. They are the instrument for us to be able to navigate this world. They are the only thing for you where you are the expert, where you don't have anybody contesting you, where you are the only one who is actually more, how do I say it? Where you have authority. If you want to tell the story of another person, you are going to ask for permission almost. You are going to sort of try to tell it to suit them because it is not your story. But when you tell your story, nobody can contest it. Nobody can tell you who you are. So we must learn to leverage the power of storytelling, whether we are in business, we are in community, we are in politics, we are in religion, in spirituality. Storytelling is going to be relevant always, always, and all the time. So please, let's learn to use it for ourselves and also for the people around us. I want to thank you all again for the time. Elijah, Nakatia, Dr. Mathia, Olatuji, Gloria, I really appreciate your presence here. I really do.